Okay, let's conclude our project by adding the features that are required for this application, which is find a name and remove a name, right? So I've already written up here what will be the prototype of my function, what it would look like. I would like to have a function find name and supply it with a list, and it will tell me that that name was found, and we could add some other nifty features like how many times it was found. If we have, let's say, Joe twice in the list, we might have 2 instances of that data member within that list. We could do that as well. The only thing I haven't done yet is number 2, which is remove a name. But I haven't defined find name. As you can see, I have a red squiggly line. I just put a placeholder here for what the function name is going to be. So I'm going to do it right here above menu. I'm going to define this function. So def find name, and we're going to pass names to it, just like we've done before. And we're simply going to ask the user to actually enter a name. So we're going to make this function handle the user input and then handle the messages needed to let the user know that if there is a record within that list that matches the name the user entered. So we're going to call that record name that you're looking for, and we're going to input it using this function. It is a string, so enter a name to find in the list. Okay. All right, so now that we have that, let me just enter one extra enter here so I can, if you notice, if you don't leave 2 spaces between the functions, you will get the squiggly line all the way across. So this just makes it easier. The only reason we're getting a squiggly line here is because we have a capitalized letter here, okay? Is just my form of writing my function names. Typically, just so you know, they prefer in Python to have it all lowercase, okay? That's why we're getting this little warning here, but it has no effect on our program, just so you don't panic. All right, so we have name in our hand. What do we do with it? Well, we're going to use a method within the methods associated to a list, since now names is an object. And then we could do something like this. If names dot count, notice self, and a value. What is it? Name itself that you're looking for. So count. So as long as this is going to be greater than 0, we've got to count, right? So and what is it you're looking for? The name. So as long as this is greater than 0, then we have a record. And we could print something like this. Print. We have, just make it nice. And then you can actually print the count if you want. Names.count. Name. Now this is not the most efficient way to write the code because you are rerunning. If the list is very long, you run this method here, and then you're running this method here again. But it will work for a small list like we're handling right here. We have records of, and then we can actually type name if you want. All right, and else we could do print no record found. All right, well, let's go ahead and test it out. Okay, so let me run it. Let's go ahead and add a name. Let's enter Joe at least once. And let's see if we can actually find Joe. So 3. And I'm going to type Joe just the way it was. And you can see here we have 1 record of Joe, right? Now, if I go back and I enter another Joe in there, and let me just print all of them so you could see that we have 2 Joes in here. All right, so if I do a find name 3, and I'm looking for Joe, notice now I have 2 records of Joe. Maybe I should have an S, records of, okay? Just so it can be generic enough in case we have more. Else, record not found. So let's go ahead and do a 3 and try to find Jane. And you can see here, no record found. Okay, so Jane isn't in there. Okay, can we add other names in there? Malik, for example. All right, and I can view all of my, with 4, I can view everything. So I have Joe, Joe, and Malik. So I have 2 Joes and a Malik. Now, again, doing 3. Can I look for Malik? Now, if you do lowercase, we got a problem. No record found, so it's case sensitive. I will show you in future exercises we're going to do how to handle a situation where you don't want the uppercase or lowercase to affect the search, so you will find it no matter what the case is. That's another exercise we get into it when we get into it. So at this stage, we're just sticking with the basic functionality of these methods, and we're not doing anything extra. So we couldn't find Malik lowercase, obviously. So if we do 3 Malik uppercase, we should have 1 record of that, which is perfect. Okay. So good. So now we need to remove a name. So let me go ahead and exit for now, and let's create the function remove a name. And let's go back to the list of items. So do you see where it says removing record under construction? I'm going to take that and make a prototype for my function call. And I'm going to call it remove name. And obviously you're going to have to supply it with the names list. Okay. Now notice it's got a red squiggly line because I've never defined this function yet, right? So we need to now go ahead and define it. So let me just go ahead and do two spaces. I'm going to define this function, remove name, and we're going to pass names as a reference. And what we're going to do is just make sure I spelled it the same way. Remove name. Yep. We're going to ask the user for a name, and then we're going to see if it will remove it. So first, we're going to ask the user name equals input, enter a name to remove from the list. So the name has to exist, obviously. And okay. So how do we remove it? Well, we could use the remove method, right? So names dot remove and then name. Okay, let's see it in its basic work, if it actually works. And let's go ahead and type 1, enter a name. Let's enter Joe. We're going to do another one, enter Henry. And we're going to remove Henry. So, but before we do that, let's go ahead and do a print. So we could see we have Joe and Henry already as part of the list, right? Name Joe, name Henry. We're going to remove Henry. So 2, name, enter a name to remove from the list, Henry. Okay. Now let's go ahead and do a for print all names. And you can see I'm only left with Joe. Okay. All right. So this works just fine. And so I will see you for the next lesson.